Hi everyone, this is Howard. Welcome again to another Star Talk Tuesday. This Tuesday being May 12th, 2020. Now, today I'd like to talk about a few things that are in the sky that, they haven't been around much lately, and recently we've had a spate of them in the sky. We're talking specifically about comets. And so we've got a few comets I want to point out in the sky that are really potentially, one of them may actually be an absolute showstopper, potentially, meaning it has and isn't. Some folks are very encouraged by what they've seen so far. Right now, it's actually already pretty bright in the sky. In some places, it's already a naked eye target. I think that's in the southern hemisphere more, but they're going to probably get a better view. But Comet Swan is putting on a pretty spectacular show, and there's hope that it will be a daytime naked eye target, meaning that in the bright daytime sky you will be able to see the tail of this comet. Comet Swan is sort of come out of nowhere. When everyone was paying attention to Comet Atlas, Comet Swan has kind of come into the scene. When Atlas fizzled out, Swan has kind of stepped in to fill its shoes and potentially maybe, like I said, a showstopper. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the evening. This is, like I said, May 12th, 2020. We're going to go ahead and accelerate our clock. And we're going to start with, just our normal evening sky first, of course. So let's back the view out just a hair. I apologize. Remember, I'm always trying to be conscious of the adjustments here. Let's increase the speed. Whoa, that was pretty fast. Right about there. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so very early evening. This is around 8:30 in the evening. Look, we see the very familiar view we've been seeing for quite a while now. Bright Venus in the sky, and of course accompanied with the brightest star of the nighttime sky, Sirius. Looking into the low southwestern and western sky, we see Venus and Sirius sinking lower and lower, taking with it Orion there and Sirius there. In fact, we can put up there on line art so you can see it. There's Orion, Canis Major, and over here Taurus, kind of hidden behind the trees. Alright, so this is the sky that's leaving us, but let's go ahead and shift over here all the way around. Perhaps it would have been easier to go the other way. I wanted to take a quick peek into the east. This is part of our sky that's rising up, and we see in the early evening two fairly bright stars, Arcturus and Spica. We're going to continue to shift. We're going to be looking predominantly into this part of the sky. So as we look, there's Atlas, and its labels already showed up. So first off, let's take a quick look over at Atlas there. Comet C2019 Y4. Atlas. Let's go ahead and keeps fading in now. Yeah, it would have been easier or quicker to go the other way, but I wanted to look east and show you those two stars, give you some perspective. So as we zoom in, there we go. Let's go ahead and make time go by just a little bit later. It looks too bright to be able to see comets with the sun up like that. I'm going to bring this close. Look at the satellites whizzing by. I love this program, Stellarium. It's all very accurate. And so we'll take this right to about 9:15 or so, maybe 9:10. There we go. So 9:10. So here we are. We're looking down into the northwestern part of the sky. It's fairly low. You should be able to see above the treetops. And we look, and there is, what's known as Comet Atlas. Now this is the comet that was expected to put on a pretty good show, and there you could see the coma collecting around it and the representation of a tail. But what Comet Atlas did was it broke apart. And what's fascinating is the reasoning why they think it may have broken apart was that comets outgas, meaning they're chunks of dry ice, and like dry ice, it doesn't melt into water. It sublimates, it turns into a gas. And as this chunk of like dry ice from way deep in the part of the solar system comes closer to the sun, these very long and elliptical orbits, as they get close to the sun's energy starts to cause the dry ice, so to speak, to sublimate, to create a gas. And if you've got a chunk of dry ice on your kitchen counter, well then the gas just kind of floats off your kitchen counter and slips down the sides. But if you're in space and you're an object generating that gas, the energy of the sun pushes that gas into a long tail, and that's what we call our comets. Well, this outgassing can act like thrust, and I guess you could think of it in similar to those firecrackers where you'd see a circular cardboard thing that you would tack to a wall and had little little rockets taped or attached to it, and you'd light them, and this thing would spin and scream. Well, Comet Atlas, not quite to that extreme, its outgassing caused this thing to spin like little engines, and they think it spun so fast it kind of just spun itself apart, broke apart, and as it got close to the sun, it broke into pieces, and it never lived up to the expectation. So that's Comet Atlas there. Not much to look at. It's very, very faint, and I mention it because it made the news. The one that we can see, and we're going to bring this out. Here we go. We're looking to the north, and we'll put up the stick art here so that everyone can kind of follow along with some pretty familiar parts of our sky. Right up here, there's the Little Dipper. We'll put the artwork up so everyone can see how it's all kind of lined up as we look at the sky. There's Auriga the Charioteer, the bright star Capella. There's Camelopardalis. Camelopardalis, the camel leopard. In other words, this looks like a giant camel with leopard skin. Of course, that is a giraffe. That's Camelopardalis there. Here's Draco the dragon. We've got Ursa Minor, the little bear with the Little Dipper. And then over here, Ursa Major, the big bear with that asterism there known as the Big Dipper. There's the Big Dipper there. Let's go ahead and get rid of this artwork now because I think it gets in the way. We're going to zoom in into this part of the sky over here. And you'll see there's the handle of the Little Dipper. There's Polaris, the North Star. And up there's Doobie. Maybe I'm mispronouncing that, but I like to call it Doobie. Anyway, that is one of the lead stars on the edge of the Big Dipper. And you can see it's almost right above Polaris. And as we look at this time, I'm going to kind of zoom in, and there it is. It just popped into view. C2017 T2 Pan-STARRS. Now, there's quite a few comets named Pan-STARRS. Pan-STARRS is the telescope that's been used to discover these comets, and so there's a lot of them named after it. But this one, T2, is an excellent. It's actually under relatively dark skies. It's a naked eye target if you know where to look, but that would be very challenging for the skies around here. You need relatively dark skies. I recommend using a pair of binoculars. And now, this is a dynamic object, meaning it's not just sitting here. There it is today as I zoom in. There it is sitting there right there. But that's not where it's going to be tomorrow. This is a moving object, and as we look at it, you can kind of get a sense of its shifting now. So if you can't see it tonight, you might be able to look at it another night, but it'll be constantly moving, and in general, as I pull out, it's moving. Let's put that back in there. Get the title. Where's that label? There we go. It's moving in this general direction. It looks like it's going to fly into the cup of the Big Dipper, so it'll be shifting in this general direction. Now, we see our sky here. Now, this is 9:15 in the evening, so we pointed out Atlas. We've seen Pan-STARRS. Let's go ahead and accelerate through the evening. Now, I'm loath to do this without pointing out a few objects, so I'm going to quickly zoom in over here. Here we've got, well, I'll put the artwork up so you can see him. There's a Hercules. There's Hercules right there. Looks like he's reaching behind him, scratching his ear or something. Anyway, that right there, Hercules, one of my favorite objects in the sky. Got to point it at every single time. And at this time of the evening, it's very visible right in between. Here we go. I'll take it back out. There's that asterism known as the keystone. Keystone, very easily seen in the sky, looking along that first link between those two stars. We see the Great Hercules cluster, Globular cluster. This is a beautiful binocular target. If you're standing outside with your binoculars at 9:15 in the evening and you're looking up there to see Comet Pan-STARRS, remember, Pan-STARRS is going to be right up here, right in between. There it is. If we draw that down, sort of makes a triangle with Doobie, Polaris, right there. Doobie and Polaris, and makes a little triangle. Well, there's Pan-STARRS, and then right over here is the Great Hercules cluster. All right, let's go ahead and jump through the evening here, because I could spend all night long talking about this part of the sky. I'm going to go ahead and accelerate through the evening, and I hope we don't go too fast. There we go. We're going to watch time go by, watching all of those satellites zooming through the view. We're going to take this to right before the morning sun. So we're at almost 2 o'clock in the morning. There's 2. Now, there's plenty of things to look at between what we were looking at 9:15 and now. But I wanted to be able to focus on these 2 times in the evening because these are relatively reasonable. I don't expect too many people that want to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and see anything. That's why it's a hard sell for meteor showers. But this was early on in the evening. It's not too long or not too early in the evening. It's not too late, and you feasibly, before you go to bed, you can go out and check out pan stars. Now, on the other end of the clock, it's not too unreasonable to think that some of us might be up at around 5:45 in the morning. And if you are, for the early risers, like that bird, well, you get the proverbial treat. And the treat for the early risers, and this is enough to, if you're not willing to get up early in the morning for work or for any other reason, potentially the view that we have here might be worth it. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to show you what's going on here. I'm going to just make time click by just a little bit faster here so we can get to a critical moment here. We take this to right around 5:44 in the morning. And there we go, right around 5:44. So what I'm going to do is scan over here, and there's Atlas. It's shifted down into the view. It's down below the horizon now, and if we technically look, we'd see Pan Stars is somewhere over here in this vicinity, and we can still see that. But what I want you to see is here's Swan, and Swan is panning through the view here. It's kind of shifting in this direction. And as it flies through this part of the sky, there's Swan, and this is hopefully over the span of the next month, maybe next few weeks to a month, this thing really brightens up. Because it's getting lower, it's going to be harder and harder for us to see. And if we're lucky, it becomes really, really bright, we'll be able to see it in the daytime, which is what's happening, is that it's getting into a part of the sky where the sun starts to rise in the early morning. You can see the glow of the sun coming up. It starts to shift into our view. Now, there's Comet Swan, kind of drifting along this way, coming through from north. It's coming from the east, moving through the northeast into the north, almost in a straight line, almost like it looks like it's following that horizon. Now, as we shift over here, you'll notice, look, there's Comet Pan Stars still on the view. And for those of us that don't want to see it, wait or try to see it in the evening, you can actually see it in the morning. You can see Pan Stars and Swan. And for those of you, we got a bonus here. Didn't notice this, you might see that really bright thing shifting through our view. And if you're a local Florida resident, meaning if you're in our area of Florida, Bradenton, Manatee County, perhaps you can see it outward in other areas as well. I'm sure that if you're somewhere in South Florida, you'll be able to see this. That is the International Space Station. And at 5:45 in the morning, it's actually around 5:43, you will be coming up right out of here, just in the northeastern part of our sky. And as it's shifting through your view, for those of you that are up at 5:45 in the morning with your binoculars, checking out Comet Pan Stars in the north, and Swan in the northeast to the east, right, shifting in between them, will be the International Space Station, going right through the field of view of both of those comets. And as if that wasn't enough, to cap this all off, let's shift our view all the way here into the south. And as we look, what we see is a beautiful arrangement of planets and the moon. Now, we're just recovering, by this point, we're recovering from a supermoon just a few days earlier. So the moon is still going to be bright, but it shouldn't impact our view of this. And this is what I want everyone to see. When we look at Jupiter, now you'll need a telescope for this, but this is kind of a great capper to all of this. Is that we look at Jupiter, we've got a really special thing going on. And I'm going to actually pause time here because Jupiter's zooming along there. And as we look with a telescope, you can see Jupiter, its moon, Io, and the shadow that Io leaves on the upper cloud layers of Jupiter as it passes between Jupiter and the Sun, creating what would be called on Jupiter a solar eclipse. So if you were, say, floating in a blimp because there's nothing to stand on Jupiter. Say if you were floating in a blimp from some sort of observation platform and the upper cloud layers in the atmosphere of Jupiter, what you would see as a bright sunny sky would suddenly turn very dark, exactly like a solar eclipse we'd see here on the Earth. That would be happening right there in the shadow of Io. And this actually happens probably a couple of times a week or close to it. Io goes around Jupiter very quickly, so you could see this quite frequently if you're willing to look. But this happens to be going at the same time as we see the two comets in our sky in the early morning hours. We've got a shadow transit as well as the International Space Station flying through our view. So as we pan back out, folks, and we'll wrap this up, because I know I've probably talked a little bit too long. There we go. There's the ISS flying through the field of view, a bright moon in the sky, 3 beautiful planets, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, 2 beautiful comets, and the bright light of the International Space Station. Anyway, thanks again for joining us, folks. I have clearly run out of time. We'll see you all next time.